About rock climbing 101, which is just the basics of rock climbing. And if you would click the next slide for me, please. I want you guys to close your eyes for a minute and think of the thing that terrifies you most. Okay, and I'm sure amongst you guys, there is probably someone out there that said afraid of heights or something along those lines. Well, my biggest fear is being in a cubicle for 8 hours a day, just staring at a computer monitor and seeing absolutely no sunlight. And I like getting outdoors, and I like actually experiencing everything, hiking, and get all the adrenaline pumping. So, if you would click the next slide, please. Today I'm going to be talking to you about pretty much the basics of rock climbing, which we have rappelling, which is descending from the top of the climb to the bottom, belaying, which is assisting your climber up and taking the slack out of the rope. And then you have your 4 types of climbing. Top roping, where you actually anchor your rope to the top of the rock face, and then you have your belayer at the bottom, which is predominantly what I do. You have lead climbing, where you have your belayer at either the top or the bottom, and what they're doing is they're taking the slack out of the rope while you're placing your gear, which catches your fall. You also have bouldering, which is exactly what it sounds like. You have maybe a 10-foot, 12-foot rock where you just traverse across, and it works on technique and coordination. And then you have the most dangerous of the 4, which is free climbing. Okay, I'm going to begin talking to you about rappelling, and here is a picture of me rappelling down the side of a 80-foot rock face. And you have 2 major tools with this. You have the figure of 8, and you have your ATC belay device like I have here. And whenever you're rappelling, what you're going to do is you want to hook into your rappel loop, and you want to lock down your carabiner. And if this is your rope here, I'm going to tie it here. What you're going to do is your line's heading down to the bottom. Imagine this is your rock face here. What you're going to do is you're going to take your device, and you're going to actually take 2 bites of rope, push it through on both sides, make sure both sides are parallel to your metal wire here, and you're going to clip it into your carabiner through the rope and the wire, like so. And I've got this set up for a left-handed brake, which means as you're descending, your body weight's going to pull the rope through like this, and you're controlling how fast you're going by how much torque you're putting down on the belay device, or the rappel device in this case, like so. And you do that all the way to the bottom, and you can go as fast or as slow as you would like. Okay, we'll go to the next slide, please. Belaying is where you have one person that's tied into the other end of the rope. And this is the most popular of the belay devices in the ATC. And when you're belaying somebody, it's very similar to what you're doing with rappelling, except for you're just taking the slack out of the rope. So you're taking 1 bite of rope, you're clipping in, locking down, and what you're doing whenever you're belaying is you're pulling the slack out of the rope. So you're actually pulling like this, putting your hand above it, and you just keep doing that to take the slack out of the rope. If they fall, to immediately arrest their fall, you're taking your right hand, which is always on the rope, and you're locking it down, which will not allow this rope to go anywhere. Okay, and top roping is probably the safest of all the climbing that is done on a higher scale. The gear needed, I have all the gear for top roping. Usually you'll need about 50-60 meters of, I usually recommend 10 millimeter or higher climbing rope. There's no substitute for this. You'll need webbing for anchors. You'll need several locking carabiners. And you'll need your belay device. And of course your harness and chalk bag, which the chalk bag is just used to powder your hands, and like the more you sweat, the more effective the chalk does at keeping your hands dry and keeping you on the rock face. The major part of this, when you're setting your anchors, what you're doing with your webbing is you're actually girth hitching two objects, which, say my arm is a tree. What you're going to do is you're just going to pull it through itself like so. And you're going to have this hanging over the edge, and you're going to have two of these that are the same length. And you're going to take two carabiners that are locked opposed, which means you're going to take one like this, lock them both down, and you're going to thread your rope through there, and you're going to throw your rope to the bottom. And once this is done, you can rappel down, or you can walk down to the bottom, and you can go ahead and tie in, and your belayer can get hooked up, and they'll go through the same procedure that I just walked you through. The consequences of a fall, however, on this, whenever you fall, you're falling maybe about 5-7 feet, not very far, which is just the amount of slack that is in the rope at the time and the amount of stretch that the rope is going to give. Lead climbing is a little more dangerous, and the falls are very different depending on your belayer and depending on where you last placed your gear. Because where you last place your gear is where you're falling to. So if you place your gear 15 feet down, you're going 15 plus feet down, because as soon as the gear catches you, your belay device locks in, and then you're continually falling until it stops. So it's not uncommon to fall, say 40 feet with this type of climbing. With this, you're needing a little extra gear. You're going to need your rope as well as your locking carabiners, your harness, your chalk bag. But you're also going to need what are called quick draws, cams, and nuts. Your cams and your nuts are what are used to actually attach into the rock face. And if you have a little fissure in the rock face, what you want to do is you want to take a nut or a cam and you want to lock it in there, and you want to tug on it to make sure it's snug and make sure it will hold your weight. And then you're going to attach your quick draw into the loop of here and your rope into the other one. And you're just going to keep doing that along the rock face. And the cams work the same way, except for they've got a little handle on them. And you pull the handle, you stick it in, and you let it go, and it expands out, and it won't go anywhere. Okay, bouldering, I think is the best way to get started into this very fastly growing sport. The only thing you really need is a chalk bag, because all it is about a 10-foot climb, and you're pretty much traversing the boulder, and it's improving your technique, and it's your upper body strength and whatnot to help with higher climbs. The consequences of a fall, not very much. You might get a little bruised. They have what are called crash pads, which is pretty much just a mattress that if you fall, it stops you there. And usually you have a spotter that, if you fall like on an overhang, then it'll keep you upright. Free climbing. This is by far the most dangerous of any climbing that can be done. No gear is used except for maybe a chalk bag and climbing shoes. And I've seen videos of people climbing places in Yosemite with no gear, which is very, very rugged. The consequences of a fall are pretty much immediate death. So, skills required. I don't recommend this for anybody, no matter how easy the climb is or how hard the climb is, because it only takes one mistake and you're down. So, But people do this because they are by far more adrenaline junkies than I am bold enough to be. And I just can't do it, so, okay. And this is a really good sport to get started into, and I'd recommend, if you are interested in it, talk to people that climb. There's also websites like Mountain Project, which will give you lots of good places that you can go. There's over 1,500 climbs listed in the area for North Carolina alone, which will keep you busy for a very long time. And you need to be checked out by a professional before you go do this, so you know that you're doing it right, because it only takes one mistake for it to cost you your life or a very serious injury. But I mean, if you guys have any questions or anything, I'd be more than happy to help with them. So.
Thank you.